This is Polar Bear Trainer, and in today's video, we'll be discussing the differences in new Pokemon names in Japanese and English in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Let's dive on in. First and foremost, let me say that we will only be going over the Pokemon that has been revealed to avoid spoilers for those that does not want it. Plus, who knows if it is actually accurate or not. Before we can dive on into the new Pokemon names, let me just give you a few examples of some of our very well-known Pokemon names, both in Japanese and English, so you can see the differences and similarities of many of their names. For example, Magikarp, which is a well-known Pokemon for clearly super useful in fights. In Japanese, their name is Koikingu. What I love about the meaning of Japanese instead of English is that it literally translates to Kimbukoi. And honestly, with the crown they have on top of their head, was to say they aren't royalty. Now, in contrast, we have some Pokemon names that has pretty similar meanings both in Japanese and English. And one of the examples would be Suruwuru. In Japanese, this Pokemon is named Usoki, which literally translates to Uso, which is a fake, and Ki, which is tree. Now, in English, pseudo was chosen as a purposeful misspelling of pseudo, which means false, and wudo, which refers to its tree-like appearance. I mean, if anybody remembers the first encounter of Sudowoodo in Pokemon Gold or Silver, you know that tree stood there like it was real and blocked all the path for you. See? These examples for sure show that Pokemon names in Japanese are chosen many times as a pun or literal looks of the Pokemon. What's interesting is that sometimes English follows the same pattern and other times completely ignores it. Enough about the old Pokemons. Let's discuss the new Pokemons coming in Scarlet and Violet. First up is our brand new Pokemon we got introduced a few weeks ago in the new Pokemon trailer, Graveyard. This new Pokemon, who is honestly super cute, is a ghost-type Pokemon. From the name Graveyard, one might think that it's a play on graveyard, and you would be correct. In Japanese, this ghost-type Pokemon is called Bochi, which literally translates to graveyard in Japanese. So, 100 points for literal translation on Pokemon for sure.
Obviously.
Another Pokemon that has a name that's literally translated would be Smoliv. Smoliv in Japanese is called Minibu. And you guys know why it's that way? It's because it is literally a combination of Japanese of mini, which means mini, and olive, oribu, and they just mushed it together and called it Minibu. So for the fact that English is literally a Smoliv, I think this is pretty literal and it deserves another 100 points. Next up would be Bellibolt. In Japanese, Bellibolt is called Harabari. And honestly, it's a literal translation because hara means stomach. Bari is kind of like a sound effect that we use for lightning bolts. So it eludes lightning bolts. So I feel like Bellibolt, it makes pretty good sense. We have the Bari Giraffe. I think this is the most interesting literal translation from Japanese to English. In Japanese, this Pokemon is called Rikikirin. And what's interesting about it is the prior form is actually called Kirindiki, Japanese, and in English, it's actually a flip version. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this Pokemon is the most unique because in Japanese, with the evolution, because it literally rips out its tail and put it on its head, they actually split up the name from Kirindiki and moved the last part of it to the front sense of its looks. And you can actually see the exact same thing in English. They just literally broke up the last end and they moved it forward, and that's how you got for a giraffe. So you're welcome, and that's a literal translation. I feel like these are pretty easy Pokemon to kind of understand since it has literal translation from Japanese to English and just found good words in English to describe them for their name. Let's move on to the not so awesome translation of a new Pokemon from Japanese to English. First up, we have our adorable Fidough. Now, I know what you're all thinking, but wait, that looks like buns and bread. You're wrong. In Japanese, This Pokemon name is Papimochi. And this kind of literally translates to puppy, which is like a Japanese way of us pronouncing puppy in English, and mochi, which can be mochi or the texture that the Pokemon feels, which is mochi mochi, which is a word that we describe to use like a bouncy texture. Now, regardless of which one it is, I know for sure that this baby is not made out of wheat, and if anything, it's made out of rice flour. So, why is it Fido? Just a little thought to think about, you know? Another interesting Pokemon that had a name change would be Sereten. I hope I'm saying it right. But I know I'm saying the Japanese name right, so I mean, yeah. But after researching many different like combinations of words, Sereten most likely was named after combination Cetacean or Cetus, which is a sea monster in Greek mythology and also is a titan. Now, you might be wondering why I feel like this Pokemon was named and translated incorrectly. Well, it's because of the fact that in the Japanese name, the Pokemon's actually named Harukujira, which literally translates to spring, Haru, Kujira, whale. So it's a spring whale. And you can kind of see that it is a spring whale if you look at it. It gives you that pink coloring, so it makes you feel a little bit more cherry blossom and a spring type of feel. So I feel like this one, English translation, could have put a little bit more meaning of spring to make it a little bit closer to the original name in Japanese. I want to mention some cute yet funny name translations we have from our new Pokemon, Scarlet and Violet. First up in this category is Fuecoco. I can see the English name meaning pretty easily with Fue representing fuego in Spanish since it's a fire type Pokemon. But you see, what's cuter in Japanese is that this Pokemon is named Hogeko. This naming is a combination of Hoge, which means a little bit of an airhead, might be a little bit easygoing, and Geta, which is like a Japanese pronunciation and abbreviation form of word alligator. This checks back since Fuecoco is known to have some spacey moments and also relaxed vibes according to the information provided by Pokemon. Another starter Pokemon who has a cute name in Japanese and also in English is Sprigatito. Just like it sounds, for the English name, it draws influence from sprig being like the leaf and gatito from Spanish being the cat. In Japanese, the name is called Nyaha, which is like nya, which is kind of like what the cat noise makes in Japanese, and ha, which is a grass. Although many Pokemon names are changed, there are always some Pokemon that does not get changed in translation of names. These include Koraidon, Miraidon, and also the regional Whooper. I honestly wonder if it was too hard for them to deconstruct the words and reconstruct it in English meaning. Thank you so much for watching this week's information about Scarlet and Violet, and let's go out there and catch them all. If you want to catch some shiny hunting that we do live on Twitch, we're always live from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern.